Welcome back to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba, your host, with Mervyn Price.
And I'm Irvin Price, the co-host.
All right, and Andrew Kernan.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, today we're talking with Ashley Cook and Wayne Norton. Ashley Cook is CEO of Zoccam.
Zoccam.
2 in a row.
There you go.
Okay. And Wayne Norton is the Chief Operating Officer. Okay. Mervyn had some real quick questions. Andrew was full of them questions too. So let me start off with Mervyn and then step back and let you and Andrew get into this with it.
I might rifle shoot these at you, Wayne, so you got a quick answer.
Sounds great.
This is a fascinating technology, but what information does the title company receive every time you make that check transfer?
When the realtor will go in and insert the buyer, seller, both realtors' email addresses in the amount of the check. So once they've confirmed, every party will get a notification with all that metadata, and also an image of the check goes only to the title company.
Okay. Well, an image of the check. How do you ensure image quality then if it's just an image?
We utilize the same technology that banks do, and it will read the MICR and verify the image quality is good enough to transfer directly to the bank.
What about duplicate checks? If one of these has been transferred, can I go to the bank, another bank with the check and pass it? No?
No, the system will not allow the same check to be deposited twice.
Damn. Okay.
Stop that.
One problem I've got is my bank only receives, on this MRDC system, checks up to $2,000. So when I pay my wife, I can't give her more than $2,000 at a time, which is not good or bad. But how do you overcome that?
From the business perspective, the escrow accounts are highly regulated by the state regulatory insurance commissions. So we allow the title companies to set the volume limit of a check, the cap, because they're the ones that will be responsible for the money.
Okay, is there a license, or do you have to log in and log out to use the system?
You have to download the app and register, and then we'll assign a security code, and then they're able to insert their own security code.
Okay.
And let's bring Andrew in. Andrew had a really good question we talked about.
Yeah, Wayne, what's your background in the housing industry or your experience?
I've been in the financial services space for over 30 years, both in the title and mortgage side of the business. So I had the opportunity to join Zoccam and Ashley, and being in the industry for that many years, it was very much needed because we were a very manual process. And to see the pace in which technology is catching up in our industry is fascinating.
Yeah, I know. I know that the future holds digital clothing is right around the corner, and this seems like it'll be a big part of digital clothes. As far as in the title space and in other spaces, where do you see this technology applying?
Anything from the payment perspective, if you think about a real estate transaction, there's probably 4 or 5 deposits per transaction and probably over 20 wires or checks going out of every single file. So Zoccam would be positioned very well to take advantage and support the industry in a very secure and safe way.
Is this just limited to title mortgage space, or can this be applied in other verticals?
That was our initial launch, but now we're looking at other verticals around the real estate space. But we've been contacted by many industries trying to see how they can apply Zoccam technology.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's really exciting is that the more familiar that we get with the payments industry, I think there's a lot we can do from a regulatory standpoint, because I think that everyone has their eye on Bitcoin and
blockchain,
Apple Wallet, and all these electronic payments, which are fascinating and a valid place to be looking. But there's always going to be a need to deposit funds into an escrow account. So how we facilitate Check 21 transactions or initiate wire transactions in a more secure, efficient manner, that's something that we're looking to tackle.
I can see the securities industry just going all over themselves for this. Because
yes, I could too.
That's a huge market right now because there's some issues there with that.
Yeah, we've seen I think it goes back to just tying down the direction of money so that, it can only go where it's intended to go, right? And the person making the deposit, not knowing what bank that the money is going to, is also, I think not having to expose your account information is something that is very helpful from a security standpoint.
Yeah, like the housing industry, I'm sure there's lots of other industries that still require some kind of form of paper check versus an electronic ACH or something. What's the difference between that paper check and an ACH?
Well, so an ACH can be retracted, which is why we don't allow ACH payments into an escrow account. So the consumer has 90 days. Whereas the Check 21 Act, when that went into effect, it says that we can take a paper check and then that electronic image is as good as the paper check. So once it's captured and converted into an electronic image by capturing the front and back of the check, you can destroy the original check. Excuse me. And so that gets processed like a check, which means that they can't come back and say, okay, we need to retract that transaction. And so when you look at an electronic check, they're using electronic funds transfer. And again, that's going to be a different law than Check 21. So into an escrow account, we've got wired funds, cashier's check, and personal checks.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, I hope I'm not divulging any company secrets from an offline conversation.
Just wave your hand real quick.
I know. What?
We had talked about in your future it's going beyond just collecting money, but also like collecting the contract at closing and OCRing that contract, and
Right.
that could possibly have, just like securing the money, the finances, that has implications for the secondary market. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So we're in our next launch. I should say launches, right? Because it'll be in different phases. But we're right now we're sending the contract in, and if we're integrated with the title company's software, then we actually push the metadata in and open that order. So we take out the manual entry point, right, for the title company. But we will be capturing other documents, and then we're also coming out with the ability to capture the driver's license of the borrower, so that if we were going to send a mobile notary out to close the transaction, we can capture the driver's license and give a report whether or not it's fraudulent or, in fact, a valid ID or passport. And every document and payment that's sent through Zoccam, we're going to collect that record. And this is where the blockchain comes in as well. And then that file we can pass on to the lender to help them sell that loan in the secondary market. Because that's one of the big problems, is from the mortgage broker to the wholesale lender to the secondary market, is validating the data, making sure that the sales price was the sales price, making sure that all the documents were properly executed. So it's pretty exciting.
That is. I know that from the housing crisis, those lawsuits from investors coming back and backing into all those loans that were done and finding those minor details that weren't done right has had a huge impact and hasn't even filtered through the courts yet from 2008.
Mervyn?
Go ahead, Merv.
Oh, me? Well, one of the best things Zoccam does is take the security risks out of the transaction. Wayne, you eliminated potential fraud and everything else. Just give us an example of how you get that level of security. What is it you do?
Well, if you look at the way that the software is written and the security measures we go through mobile penetration test quarterly to make sure we pass from that perspective. The title companies really like the technology from a security perspective because it enhances the present process. The present process today has some weak links in it. So this kind of will close the gap on all of those.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. But, to Wayne's point, the current process, just with sending emails back and forth about, hey, we're about to send money via wire. And it's like, and a lot of times the subject line, they're like wire transfer, wire instructions. And so people we're just getting nailed in the industry. And we take that out. And the other thing is, as far as the security, we have a direct relationship with the banks. And so I think that's important to recognize as well.
Now, is this domestic now and then moving on an international basis as you go forward?
Have you seen the movie Step Brothers Worldwide? What was the worldwide entertainment company? So we are national. today, and we can, there's no limit there. And yes, I would see us going into other countries.
I can see this working for everything from the automobile industry to the yacht industry to the securities industry. Lots of that securities industry is a wide open game for you. isn't it?
Yes, we are now best friends. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We think alike.
I'll run the chart later. Okay, we've got about 2 minutes left before we go. Any last minute questions from Andrew or Mervyn? Or
Not me especially. I'm pretty impressed though. It would have made buying my last house an awful lot easier because I had that problem. They lost my escrow.
Yeah.
Oh, see, living
And
testimony.
There you go.
As long as we're talking about verifying things, it said here that you're an avid ping pong player and have won several office tournaments.
I
is there
have-
anyone else that can attest to that?
I have won several office tournaments. So.
Wayne, have you
Yes,
been
she
witness
has.
to this?
Yes, she
Oh
has.
yes, and I write it on the whiteboard.
Kid at
Very
heart.
large.
A kid at heart.
Hook.
I will have
win.
to. I will have to come to your office someday
Yes.
for a match.
Forrest Gump was good at that too, wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, you're right. You're right.
Okay. On that note, we're going to have to close for now. Ashley, thanks for being our guest.
Thank you so much for having us.
My pleasure. All right, Wayne, thanks for being the guest.
Thank you.
All right, you've been listening to CEO Money with Michael Yorba, Mervyn Price, and Andrew Kernan. We've been interviewing Ashley Cook and Wayne Norton of Zoccam, Zoccam.com, Zoccam.com. We'll be right back on the other side of this break with Jenna Rankin, Future. We'll be right back.